What if I told you that one of the most peaceful communities in America handles its criminals without police, without courts, without lawyers, and without prison, and that this system works remarkably well for most crimes and fails catastrophically for others? The Amish and the law. The Amish do not call the police. This is not stubbornness, it is theology. The doctrine of non-resistance, rooted in the Sermon on the Mount, forbids Amish from wielding any form of coercive force against another human being. They do not serve in the military. They do not serve on juries. They do not hold political office. They do not sue in civil court, and in most cases, they do not involve law enforcement when something goes wrong inside their community. The bishop is the authority. The church is the court. The ordnung is the law. How it comes to light. In a community where 60 or 70 families live within walking distance of each other, where every adult knows every child by name and every household's daily rhythm is visible to its neighbors, secrets have a short lifespan. Crimes inside Amish communities surface in one of three ways. The offender confesses to the bishop, to a family member, to God in a moment of genuine remorse that he cannot contain. A witness comes forward, another community member who saw something or heard something and carries it to the deacon quietly, without drama. Or a victim speaks sometimes years after the fact, when the silence becomes heavier than the shame of telling. Each path to the surface is different. What they share is that the truth arrives eventually, because in a community this small, the weight of a secret is distributed across too many people to stay hidden forever. The bishop's first response. The bishop does not call the sheriff. His first move is always private, a visit to the accused, accompanied by a minister or deacon, conducted at the kitchen table behind a closed door. He listens. He asks questions directly and without flinching. He allows the accused to speak. This is rooted in Matthew 18:15, which instructs believers to address sin privately before involving the broader community. The goal at this stage is not punishment. It is truth and repentance. If the accused confesses genuinely and the offense is something the church can address through its own discipline, the process moves forward entirely within the community. No report is filed. No English authority is contacted. The church handles what the church believes is its to handle, and law enforcement is kept outside the door. The confession. When the offense is serious enough to require public accounting, the criminal stands before the gathered congregation. This is not a brief or comfortable moment. The entire district is present: neighbors, family members, the people whose trust he violated while living among them as one of their own. He is expected to name what he did specifically. Not a vague acknowledgement of wrongdoing, but a direct account of the offense and the harm it caused. The congregation listens in silence. When he finishes, the bishop asks whether the members are willing to receive his confession and begin the process of restoration. There is a vote, and it must be unanimous. A single dissenting voice can prevent the process from moving forward. The weight of that moment, a man accounting for his crime before every person whose opinion of him has ever mattered, is something no courtroom sentence fully replicates. What the community feels. The reaction inside the district is never simple, and it would be wrong to describe it as purely righteous. There is shock, yes, even in a community where human failing is acknowledged as universal. The specific shock of discovering that someone you trusted, someone whose children played with your children, whose wife sat beside your wife at quilting, whose face you have greeted at church for 20 years, has done something that violates the core of what you all agreed to be together. But there is also grief. The Amish do not experience the exposure of a criminal among them as a scandal to be managed. They experience it as a wound in the body of the community itself. Something has been broken that cannot simply be repaired by punishment. The trust that makes Amish communal life possible, the trust that allows you to leave your door unlocked, to send your child to a neighbor's farm, to lend your tools and your labor without a contract, has been damaged, and everyone inside the district feels that damage whether they name it or not. When the crime is too serious. Most offenses that occur inside Amish communities, property disputes, dishonesty in business, violations of the ordnung, are genuinely addressable through church discipline. a man who cheats a neighbor, a young person who acquires forbidden technology, a member whose behavior disrupts community harmony. These situations are what the bishop's authority was designed to handle. But some crimes are different. Sexual abuse of children, domestic violence, financial fraud that harms multiple families. Crimes of this severity expose the most serious limitation of a system built on internal accountability and voluntary confession. An abuser who confesses is placed under the ban for 6 weeks, then restored to full fellowship after repentance, is deemed genuine, while the children he harmed are expected to forgive and continue living inside the same community. Bishops in Pennsylvania and Ohio have faced criminal charges in recent years specifically for handling abuse internally and never contacting authorities. The tension between church discipline and legal obligation is not theoretical in these cases. It has resulted in continued harm to victims who had no other recourse available to them. The shunning. When the process of private counsel and public confession does not result in genuine repentance, when the accused refuses to confess, minimizes what he did, or repeats the offense, the congregation votes on formal excommunication. The Meidung, once imposed, restructures every relationship in the community around the offender's absence. Community members may not eat at the same table. They may not accept anything from his hand directly. His family members who remain in good standing must limit contact in ways that are specific and public. He may attend church services, but he cannot participate fully. He exists inside the community in a kind of suspended state, present but severed, visible but unreachable, until genuine repentance and confession restore him to full fellowship. The shunning is not designed to destroy him. It is designed to create enough social pressure that restoration becomes the path of least resistance. Whether that pressure constitutes loving correction or coercive control depends entirely on the nature of the offense and the character of the bishop applying it. The victims inside. The people this entire system most consistently fails are the victims, specifically the victims who live inside the same community as the person who harmed them. An Amish woman whose husband commits violence against her has no easy path to outside help. An Amish child who has been abused by a community member is surrounded by adults whose first instinct is to handle the matter without involving English authorities. A neighbor defrauded by a trusted member of his district is expected to pursue reconciliation rather than legal remedy. The community's theology of forgiveness is genuine and deeply held. It is not cynical, and it is not designed to protect criminals. But its effect, in cases of serious harm, is to place an enormous burden on victims. They are asked to forgive not as a private spiritual practice, but as a public community obligation, often before the harm has been fully acknowledged, often in proximity to the person who caused it, and often without any formal acknowledgement from the broader community that what was done to them was wrong in a way that went beyond a failure of the Ordnung. When English law arrives anyway, there are cases in which the outside world does not wait for an invitation. When a crime is reported by someone outside the community, when a victim eventually contacts authorities directly, or when the scale of the offense makes external investigation unavoidable, law enforcement arrives whether the community welcomes it or not. The Amish response to this varies significantly by bishop and district. Some cooperate, fully answering questions, providing information, allowing investigators access. Others resist, not from a desire to protect criminals, but from a genuinely held belief that involving the state in matters of the church violates a theological principle that they are not willing to compromise regardless of the circumstances. In the Bergholz beard-cutting case in Ohio, members of an Amish community were convicted of federal hate crimes and sentenced to prison terms ranging from 2 to 15 years. Several victims of the assaults refused to testify, citing Jesus' instruction not to resist evil. The collision between Amish non-resistance and English criminal law produces outcomes that satisfy neither system fully, and the people caught between them carry the cost. Whether forgiveness is possible, the Amish believe in forgiveness in a way that is not metaphorical or aspirational. It is theological, practiced, and expected. When a gunman entered the West Nickel Mines Amish school in Lancaster County in 2006 and killed 5 girls before taking his own life, the Amish community forgave him publicly within hours. They attended his funeral. They embraced his widow. They established a charitable fund for his family alongside the one for their own victims. The world watched this and did not know what to make of it, because most people have no framework for forgiveness practiced at that speed and that depth in the face of that magnitude of loss. Inside an Amish community where one of their own has committed a crime, the expectation of forgiveness follows the same logic. The offender who confesses and repents genuinely is forgiven. The matter is not raised again. The community moves forward. Whether the victim's inner experience matches the public act of forgiveness is a question the Amish system does not ask, because the system is not built around the victim's healing. It is built around the community's restoration, and those two things, in cases of serious harm, are not always the same. The family he left behind. Nobody asks about his wife. Nobody formally addresses what it means to be the mother of his children, the woman who shared his bed and his table and his name, in the days and weeks after the community learns what he did. She did not commit the offense. She is not under the ban. She is free to participate fully in church life, to sit among the women she has always sat among, to send her children to the same school they have always attended. The community does not punish her formally, but the community is also 60 families who now know something about her household that changes how every conversation with her feels, and she knows that they know, and they know that she knows, and the space between that shared knowledge and ordinary daily life is something she must navigate entirely on her own. Her children go to school the morning after it comes out, they sit in the same seats, they speak to the same teacher, they walk home past the same neighbors. Whether those neighbors treat them differently, with extra gentleness, with visible discomfort, with the particular awkwardness of adults who do not know what to say to a child whose father has done something the community is still processing, depends on the people and the district and the severity of what was done. What does not depend on any of those things is the weight those children carry to school that morning and every morning after, through no fault of their own, inside the only community they have ever called home. There is something genuinely admirable about a community that handles most of its conflict without lawyers, without prisons, and without the dehumanizing machinery of a system that processes people rather than knowing them. The Amish criminal justice system, if it can be called, that works for a certain category of human failing. For dishonesty, for violations of community standards, for the ordinary frictions of people living in close proximity, the combination of private counsel, public confession, and the threat of social exclusion produces accountability that is more honest and more relational than anything a courtroom delivers. But a system built on the assumption that all wrongdoing can be addressed through repentance and forgiveness is a system that was not designed with the most serious crimes in mind. It was designed for a community of people who share the same faith, the same values, and the same understanding of what they owe each other. When someone inside that community commits a crime that violates those values at their deepest level, the system faces a question it has no clean answer for. Who protects the victim when the community's first instinct is to protect itself? Who speaks for the child when the bishop's authority is the highest authority anyone in the district recognizes? These questions do not have comfortable answers. The Amish know this. They are not naive about the limits of what they have built. But they live inside those limits because they believe the alternative, handing their community's moral authority to the state, costs more than it gains. Whether they are right is a question each person watching this will have to answer for themselves.